And a pleasant good afternoon and welcome to Reese Stadium in New Haven, Connecticut, where today the Yale Bulldogs, the number 20 ranked Yale Bulldogs, play host to the number 17 Fairfield Stags in the home opener of the 2013 campaign for the Yale Bulldogs. Hello everybody, I'm Marc Schwartz, joined alongside Patrick Reed here today. And Patrick, we have a gorgeous day. The snow has somewhat melted a little bit. The field looks pristine, and we're ready for the first home game of the 2013 season.
I hope this game is as good as the weather is today. It is beautiful out here, and it looks like it's going to be two well-matched teams. We should be in for a good one. Oh
yeah, it certainly should be a good game here today. The Bulldogs enter 2-1 on the season. The Stags 3-2 overall. Yale started off the season with a 10-9 loss to St. John's, but they've responded with 15-8 victories over Albany, and then a 14-6 victory over Sacred Heart. So the Bulldogs turned their season around a little bit, and they're playing pretty well so far.
Yeah, that first loss to St. John's, first time that Yale has lost to St. John's, a really tough, close game. They they hung around, tried to come back, and just fell a little bit short, and then come back, beating an Albany team that was fresh off of beating Syracuse. Was just such a huge win. Really got the team back on the right track, and then Sacred Heart, they played the game they needed to play.
And a couple of players to look out for on Yale, of course. You have to look at Conrad Oberbeck, who had 6 goals against Albany. And you have to also look at Brandon Mangan, who's been the current points leader for the Bulldogs. And both of them have gotten off to hot starts for Yale so far this year.
Absolutely. Conrad Oberbeck was the leading scorer for freshmen last year, and really came out of the Brunswick School in Greenwich and stepped up, really was an integral part of the team last year, and picking up right where he left off. And Brandon Mangan, just such a firefly. I remember him last year in the loss to Notre Dame in the playoffs. He was just so fired up and such an emotional leader, a great player to have out there.
And looking at Fairfield entering the game 3-2 overall, they're led by their goalie Jack Murphy, who's played every minute of every game so far this year, Patrick, with a 61.6 save percentage this year, and he's really been a rock on that back line for the Stags.
Absolutely. Coach Shea, when I asked him about what he was thinking about with this game, the goalie play was the first thing that he mentioned. He said it's a kid who's going to be very tough to beat. We have to really work hard, play smart.
And this Stags team has gone up against some pretty tough opponents also, Patrick, so far. They lost to North Carolina, number 9 team in the nation currently, and that was a very close game. They only lost that 10-9. Granted, they had a difficult loss against Hofstra the next time out, number 15 team 9-2, but they've gone up against some pretty stiff competition, so maybe their record isn't fully indicative of the kind of team they are.
Coach Copeland is putting a great team together, and it's building a great program. And he's not pulling any punches. He's playing tough teams. He's playing Bryant. He's playing North Carolina. And this year has been such a crazy year with teams winning one game, losing the next, losing games that they really shouldn't lose real early on. And even Inside Lacrosse had an article. They said, it's just March. It's just March. Let's just get into the season a little bit, and we'll start worrying about it.
Of course, the Stags offensively led by Jordan Greenfield, 12 goals, 16 points so far this year. Also Sam Snow, 10 goals and 13 points. So along with Jack Murphy, who's been solid in the cage for the Stags, they also have some offensive power. So it could be a very interesting game between both of these teams. When we look at this game specifically, Patrick, what do the Bulldogs need to do to try to jump out ahead early and try to control the tempo of this game?
It's going to start with Dylan Levings, the face-off mid. He hasn't played his best lacrosse. It's still early in the season. He really needs to win those face-offs, and this is a team that he can really do a good job against. Outside of that, they really just need to push the ball in transition and get a couple quick early goals. If you look at the Fairfield Stags, they've tended to fade in their games. They've been outscored in the third and fourth quarter, so Yale's got to make sure they're sticking around, getting a lead or at least staying close, and then taking it to them in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, the Stags have struggled in the face-off department so far this year, only a 40% face-off win percentage compared to Yale, who has been excelling in the face-off department. Of course, the Bulldogs coming off of a historic season last year, Patrick, and trying to carry some of that momentum this year. Of course, last year getting their highest ranking in program history at 11. Also the third consecutive year last year with 10 or more plus wins. So this is a program that's really turned things around as of late, and it's really just exciting to watch this team play and have the success on the field.
It is. It's unfortunate. It's a new year with a lot of changes. Brandon Mangan's still here. Are we getting the?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Yale University.
We're going to get the anthem now.
So we're going to get set for the national anthem. The Bulldogs, number 20 team in the nation, hosting the number 17 team in the nation, the Fairfield Stags. Should be an exciting matchup between both of these teams. Nutmeg State competition. So we'll take a little break for the national anthem here. Then after that, we'll come back with the starting lineups and the opening face-off, and what promises to be another exciting matchup on an absolutely flawless Saturday afternoon here. Perfect lacrosse weather.
Goalkeeper, number 8, Jack Murphy.
It sounds like they're doing lineups first.
So no surprise, Jack Murphy will be in the cage for the Stags, and he sports quite the season so far for Fairfield, a 61.6% save percentage for Fairfield.
So what we were saying about this year versus last year, Yale's got a couple of really big holes that they have to replace. Losing Matt Gibson, who was really their offensive, the driving force behind their offense for the last 3 years. Losing Greg Mahoney, another huge midfielder. Colin Still. Losing, they also have one of the things that's kind of not said as much was assistant coach Ryan Pulley, who's taken over at BU. When you lose a defensive coordinator who's really that much influencing your program, you're bound to see huge changes. They were lucky enough to get Coach Baxter who came over from Ohio State, who should really be getting this defense up and going really strong.
And for this senior class has 31 wins entering the year, which is the most by a class since 1993, and only a couple off of the program record, which was 46 wins set by the 91 class. So this is a senior class that has had a lot of success. We mentioned earlier 10 or more wins in 3 consecutive seasons. So granted, there's a lot of turnover with this Bulldogs team, but there's still high expectations, and you like to see that for a program that expects to win.
Yes, absolutely. Yale's led really by their defense. Captain Mike McCormick, senior Phil Gross, and Peter Johnson really have played together since freshman year. The freshman and sophomore years they played, the 3 of them played every minute, played the whole season together. Last year Phil Gross gets hurt, and this year they're really trying to get this defense to be what they've been for the last three years. They've been fantastic, and one of the toughest defenses in the Ivy League. Inside Lacrosse named them the #9 defense unit in the country this year, so they're a good team.
And they've historically had a lot of success against the Fairfield Stags. 6-0 here at Reese Stadium against the Stags. The last time both of these teams played back in 2009 here at Reese, Yale won 18-11. So now we get set for the national anthem. Once we return, we'll get set for the opening face-off. And welcome back. We're about set to start up things here at Reese Stadium. The Bulldogs will be in their normal home whites with blue letters, blue trimmings, and blue numbers. The Stags in their road reds with black trimmings, white and black numbers and letters. They'll be traveling from our broadcast left to right. The Bulldogs, of course, from our broadcast right to left. Not a cloud in the sky here, Patrick. Perfect weather to get set here. And granted, we're already 3 games into the season for the Bulldogs, but still a couple of rule changes on lacrosse that for some people that might be tuning into their first game might not be completely aware of.
Yeah, this year, one of the first things you'll notice looking at the field is the teams are farther apart. The substitution box on the sideline has been extended 10 yards, so 5 yards for on each side, making some more room to increase the transition. For people who've been around lacrosse, you're going to notice there's a lot fewer horns. There's no more horns in the game, so you're not going to hear it. They're really trying to speed up the game, get the players on and off the field a lot quicker, and improve the pace. It's a much faster game than we've seen in years past, and it's very exciting.
So we're about ready to get started here at Reese Stadium. Of course, one of the mainstays on this Bulldogs team when you start up games, and on any face-off, of course, you have to look at Dylan Levings, the junior from Massapequa, New York. And, you know, it starts with him when you start up your attack, Patrick, and when you're able to control the face-offs, which Levings has been able to do with regularity against a team like Fairfield that has struggled on the face-off so far this year. It gives you an opportunity to really control possession of the game.
And admittedly, he hasn't been playing as well as he did last year, but he is one of the best face-off guys in the country. Number 7 in the country as far as face-off win percentage right now. Right now, the country's being led by Mark Poppleton from Johns Hopkins, who has been on fire with winning face-offs. But Dylan Levings is going to really take control of the ball and help his team out here.
So Eric Natale will be in the cage for the Bulldogs. He'll be on our broadcast right. Jack Murphy in the cage for the Stags on our broadcast left. Levings will get set for the opening face-off against the Stags. We have 4 15-minute quarters all set from Reese Stadium here on this beautiful Saturday afternoon. Marc Schwartz alongside Patrick Reed. Thank you for joining us here for another exciting matchup of collegiate men's lacrosse. The face-off on the ground and picked up by the Bulldogs. Levings is able to win the first face-off of the game, and the Bulldogs will control early on. A quick shot from the high slot taken by the Bulldogs and Harry Kaczarzik, but a quick save made by Jack Murphy.
Harry Kaczarzik last year was a long stick midi and was able to go back to his normal position of a short stick defensive midi on the team.
Kaczarzik going with a little high-to-high shot early on here, only a couple of seconds in. But Jack Murphy able to make his first save of the afternoon, so the Stags now will control on the broadcast right. Eric Warden at the top. Fakes the handoff, still controls it, runs over to the near side, where he passes it off. A lot of contact, ball on the ground, picked up by the Bulldogs.
That was a huge check, really dangerously close to a hold there.
Natale will control for the Bulldogs, and then gets it upfield to Kaczarzik. Crosses the midfield line, and the Bulldogs will control once again. Michael Lippin on the far side. Lippin slows things up and throws it behind the cage, whereas the drill will take it. The drill over to the near side, over to Brandon Mangan. Mangan obviously a player to watch for the Bulldogs here today. Back up top to Ryan McCarthy, and over to Lippin on the far side once again. A lot of passing along the perimeter. Bulldogs trying to size up the Stags' defense. Just a minute and a half into play here in the first quarter. No score between the Bulldogs and the Stags. Near side controlling it, Colin Flaherty. Up top to McCarthy. McCarthy running to his left and continues to slow things up. Pulls back, runs to his right, back behind the cage to Mangan. Mangan controls as the flag goes up. And we'll have a violation against Fairfield. That's going to go against number 35 for the Stags, Greg Perot.
I didn't hear the call there. It looked like interference.
Looks like a 30-second violation against Fairfield. So the Bulldogs quickly going on the man-up advantage, place that they've had a lot of success so far this year, 50% on the man-up, 7 of 14 on the season.
And this is a great opportunity for Yale to really set the tone, get this quick goal if they can here.
So the Bulldogs on the 32nd man up, passes along the perimeter. McCarthy over to Connor Oberbeck. Up top where it's taken by Shane Thornton. Back to the near side to Mangan. Up top to Shakespeare. Mangan and Shakespeare playing a little catch. 6 seconds left on the man up. Shakespeare over to Mangan on the near side. 2 seconds left on the man up. Shakespeare has it. Quick pass shot off the post. And it bounces all the way to the far sideline and rolls out of bounds.
And Fairfield using a really interesting defense there. They actually went with a box, 4 guys, and then they were shutting off Kirby as a drill behind the net.
McCarthy controls on the far side, so the Stags able to kill off the man-up advantage for the Bulldogs, but Yale still controlling. 2.5 minutes in here in the first quarter. Oberbeck behind the net. Back over to the far side, McCarthy. McCarthy up top to Thornton, and back over to McCarthy and Thornton. Playing catch once again along the perimeter. McCarthy thinks about the shot, thinks better of it. A couple of perimeter passes over to Zadrill on the far side. Back up to McCarthy. Winds up, takes the shot, and another save made by Jack Murphy. He's 2 for 2 on save opportunities so far here today. Murphy's been playing very well for the Stags this year, as the Stags struggling to get the clearance and finally able to fight it over the midfield line, Sean Hanovich. And they'll slow things up.
One of the great things you notice about an AHA team is you hear a lot about lazy attackmen, and that is just an outstanding ride. Every one of their players, they don't give an inch on this field.
Colin McClendon on the near side. Throws it all the way behind the net to Tristan Sperry. Sperry over to Sam Snow, one of the players to watch for the Stags. 13 points on the season. Over to Colin McClendon back at the top. Spins around, try to create some space for himself. Gives it off a pass, and the shot goes a little wide. Rolls out of bounds. Stags will maintain possession. Back behind the net, Sperry has it. Tries to deke out a defender. Create some space for himself. Kicks it back over to McClendon. And now over to the far side, taken by Eric Warden. Warden over to McClendon on the near side. Guarded closely, trying to create some space. Back up top to Warden. On the far side, controlled by Sperry. Makes a run, takes a shot, and a save made by Natali. Natali's first save of the afternoon.
Great save. Good low bounce shot, as we want to do. Change the plane of the shot on the goalie, and he was able to make that shot even though it was in close.
Natali fires it upfield for Mangan. Mangan catches it towards the midfield line, trying to run around, create some space. Still looking to get the full-on clearance.
And this is one of the rule changes that we're going to see, is that he crossed back over kind of over and back into the defensive zone. So now Yale is supposed to have 30 seconds to get a shot off.
And they're not able to get the shot off as the Fairfield sideline was irate. And a timeout was taken by Yale before a violation was called. So heads-up coaching right there from Andy Shea to avoid the violation. And that's a rule change that these teams will have to get used to. And it's still early on in the season, Patrick, so still a bit of an adjustment period for these teams.
Absolutely. You played lacrosse your whole life one way, and they've changed some really fundamental rules, and this going back over the field, and now all of a sudden, hey, you got 30 seconds to get a shot off. It really changes how you play the game.
So 4.5 minutes in here in the first quarter. Still scoreless between the Bulldogs and the Stags. A little back and forth play. We've seen Yale really control the time of possession a little bit, and to their credit, but Jack Murphy, we talked about him in the pregame show already with 2 saves early on, and he looks pretty stout in the cage.
He does. That first shot from Kacharczyk, maybe a little bit ill-timed. It was just a quick high-to-high shot, not maybe as much on it as he would have liked. The second shot was a little bit tougher, but really a great goalie that Yale's going to have to really move the ball and get him moving around in the net to put the ball past him.
And the Stags not able to get too much offensively going. They were able to get one shot on Natali, their last offensive possession. The Stags, of course, 3-2 on the year. They've played some pretty tough competition. Number 9, North Carolina. Number 15, Hofstra. So they've gone up against some of the best teams in the nation so far. They struggled against Hofstra 9-2, and this is a team in Fairfield. They haven't scored. They're averaging 8.6 goals per game. They're also allowing 8.6 goals per game. So somewhat consistent in that respect, but haven't really been lighting up the scoreboard.
Well, you're talking through 5 games. They've only allowed one opponent to score double-digit goals on them. That's pretty good, and when that team is North Carolina. So their defense is excellent. Their goalie play is excellent. They're a really tough team. It's just a matter of Yale creating that offense which they have.
So we'll resume play as the Stags have the ball on the near side. They'll look to cross the midfield line and get the clearance. Murphy lightly tosses it over to the far side, and the Stags will set up offense. Really only their second full offensive possession so far here today, as we're 5 minutes in at Reese Stadium. Still no score between Fairfield and Yale. Behind the net, controlling it, Jordan Greenfield. 12 points, 12 goals, 16 points on the season for Greenfield, so certainly a player to watch. Gives it over to Tristan Sperry, and then back to the near side to Marshall Johnson. Johnson up top looking for, that was Drew Federico. Federico lost control of the ball momentarily. He was able to pick it up. Some solid defense from Yale, but the flags fly, so a violation coming up against the Bulldogs.
They're going to call a cross-check on that. That's a point of emphasis here for officials, is cross-checks. That was kind of a ticky-tack call there. You can apply equal pressure, and if he really applied much more pressure than that, he would have knocked him over.
So Dalton will control on the near side as we have the delayed penalty coming up against the Bulldogs. Back up top to Johnson. Johnson to his right, winds up, takes the shot and scores. The Stags get on the board first here, 6 minutes into the first quarter. They lead the Bulldogs 1-0.
And defensively there was actually a very good defensive effort. Got a really good lift on him at the end. He was able to break out of it and get that shot off.
So Marshall Johnson gets the goal for the Stags, and after the Bulldogs had led, carried the ball for a lot of the opening stages of the first quarter, it's the Stags that get on the board first. And this is not a team that you really want to trail against, Patrick. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but with a goalie like Jack Murphy and how strong their defense has been so far this year, and granted Fairfield has also fallen, they've taken the lead in the first couple of quarters and then fallen off later, but still this is a team that you don't want to trail by too much.
They're an excellent team. One of the other rules that you're seeing different now is if there's a penalty and the team is man down, they have to face off with a man down. It used to be you'd pull a man off from your attack end and put him on the wing, so there would be 3-on-3 facing off, and now it's a man down on the face-off.
So the Bulldogs trailing 1-0, and they're a man down against the Stags, and a timeout taken by Fairfield. So trying to capitalize on a little bit of momentum. The Stags still 40 seconds left on their man-up advantage. 8:42 left in the first quarter, and the Stags leading the Bulldogs 1-0 on a goal from Marshall Johnson, the senior from Canandaigua, New York.
And it's going to be curious to see what Yale does to put emphasis on Sam Snow and Jordan Greenfield in this man-up situation. What are they going to do? How are they going to shut them down?
Greenfield and Snow, the two major goal scorers for the Stags so far this year. Of course, Snow 13 points and Greenfield 16 points. And a lot of the production has come from those two guys, but there are some other players that have had some success. Nick Guida has 5 goals for the Stags so far this year. Tristan Sperry also with 5 goals. Colin McClendon, 3 goals, 7 assists. So there are some other options on the Stags team. It'll be interesting to see, I guess, the defensive strategy that the Bulldogs come out here, try to kill this 40-second man up. And it's a big one also, Patrick. Early on in the game, you don't want to fall behind too much. And, there's still a lot of time left in this game, but
absolutely. This Yale team is really kind of not used to this not being able to score pretty much at will. You look at Albany, they put up a lot of goals. Look at Sacred Heart when they were in the close game with St. John's. That was where they lost a tough one. If you look back to Sacred Heart's loss last year, it was a really tight, close game. Yale needs to get some momentum, put a couple goals in the net, and really build off of that. They're a team that plays on emotion.
So the Stags will have the ball in the attacking end when we reset up when we restart. 8:42 left in the first quarter. Fairfield leading the Bulldogs 1-0 on a Marshall Johnson goal, his 3rd of the season. And we get set to resume play. Taken at the top is Nick Guida, 5 goals on the season. Passes along the perimeter now behind the net. Back up top to Guida and over to Sam Snow. Snow controls at the top, passes it a couple of times, and a low shot, a save made by Natali. The ground ball picked up by the Bulldogs, and they'll look to clear. Still 18 seconds left on the man-up advantage for the Stags.
Yeah, huge ground ball by Peter Johnson, picking up that ground ball in front of the net and clearing it out of there.
And Michael Lippin able to clear the ball for the Bulldogs, but quickly loses it. Ball on the ground, picked up by Yale. They control. Nice play there from Alex Otero.
It's funny. The refs called that cross check down at the other end, and that was a pretty clear cross check that leads to the ball going the other way. I'm not sure why that didn't get called.
But the Bulldogs able to clear the ball momentarily, quickly lose possession of it, and the Stags will come back the other way, but the man-up advantage has been killed off by the Bulldogs, so back at even strength for both teams as the Stags continue to lead 1-0. Trying to clear the ball is McClendon, and he's easily able to do so the Stags will set up offensively. McClendon over to the far side. Now back behind the net to Sperry. Jordan Greenfield, and now back to Sperry behind the net. Far side, Sam Snow. And just some perimeter passing for the Stags, sizing up this Bulldogs defense. Still early on in the game, Stags leading 1-0. Warden on the near side. Slows things up, back over to Sperry behind the cage. Sperry to his right, around Natali. Decides not to take the shot, back to Greenfield. Greenfield up top, pass almost intercepted, rips a shot and scores. Number 15, TJ Neubauer, the freshman, gets the goal for the Stags, and they quickly lead the Bulldogs 2-0.
And just some great ball movement. Yale went for the quick double team, and when they did, Fairfield was able to move it 3 times and get to that nice time and room shot from right on top of the net. There's not a lot that Eric Natali could do on that.
Neubauer's 4th goal of the season. So Natali now quickly being challenged here by the Stags and has led up 2 goals early on. 7 minutes left in the first quarter. The Bulldogs trailing the Stags 2-0. And now back taking the face-off for the Bulldogs. Dylan Levings will try to win another one for the Bulldogs. And it's an area that Yale does have a distinct advantage over Fairfield in statistically through the first couple of games of the season. As the ground ball loose and won by Fairfield. Still loose though on the ground, and Levings is able to pick it up. Loses it after a stick check. And the ball's still loose. Both teams continuing to fight for the ground ball. Nobody's gained solid possession quite yet. And eventually it's picked up by Fairfield. And they'll look to clear the ball back down the other side of the field. As once again it's knocked out by the Bulldogs and picked up by Yale. Jimmy Kraft takes it for the Bulldogs, and they'll slow things up. Natali has it, and he'll look to clear it. Gives it over to McCarthy. McCarthy past the midfield line, and the Bulldogs go on the offensive attack. A lot of back and forth play there, Patrick, for a little bit, but the Bulldogs able to control the ball now. So they'll set up the offense, trailing by 2 goals here in the first quarter.
And this is what the rules committee was hoping to do, create games that were much more back and forth, a lot more action, higher tempo, instead of the stall offense and taking the time.
Lippin over to McCarthy on the far side. Very good showing from both the Yale faithful and the Fairfield faithful. It only made about a 20-minute trip up to New Haven, Connecticut to watch this game today. Both programs with solid followings as McCarthy loses the ball on the far side, and the ground ball is picked up by Jack Murphy.
Yeah, I think it took me about 20 minutes to just get through the parking lot with all the people out there tailgating.
Always nice to see the support for collegiate lacrosse and the tailgates that go on before the games. As the Stags able to clear the ball once again, they'll go back on the attack. On the far side, Neubauer will control and then gets it back up top to Connor Dalton. Back behind the net, Sperry, and over to Greenfield, near side. Runs back behind the net, 5:10 left in the first quarter. Stags still leading 2-0. Greenfield loses the ball, pops up in the air. Solid defense from the Bulldogs, and Peter Johnson rolls out of bounds, and the Bulldogs will get it back.
Absolutely. Peter Johnson drafted in the MLL by the, I believe, the Rochester Rattlers. I'm sorry, the Charlotte Hounds. Shows why why he was drafted.
The Bulldogs back the other way. McCarthy on the far side. And over to Oberbeck. Oberbeck slowing things up to Mangan. Mangan up top, controlled by Thornton. Thornton slowing things up. Back over to Michael Lipton. Lipton, the senior for the Bulldogs. Over to Zadrill on the far side. Zadrill back up top to Thornton. And Thornton into a streaking Bonacci. Just entered the game for the Bulldogs. 4:20 left in the first quarter. Fairfield still on top 2-0. Marc Schwartz alongside Patrick Reed on the call. On a gorgeous Saturday afternoon at Reese Stadium. Bonacci back up top to Shakespeare. Shakespeare over to Oberbeck and back behind the net to Mangan. Mangan being challenged, worked his way around, takes the shot, goes high over the crossbar, rolls out of bounds. The race is on, and it'll be maintained by the Bulldogs.
One of the things we're noticing here, Fairfield's defense is really playing out, pressuring Yale.
As Oberbeck controls, spins it around, takes the shot, and another save made by Murphy. The rebound goes in, and the Bulldogs get on the board. Looks like that Zadrill was able to get it to go in, and they cut the deficit in half.
Wow, that was, pulled it out of the air. Goalie thought he had the ball. He was looking, he couldn't believe that the ball was past him. But Kirby Zadrill with those Canadian hands, finishing in close.
Well, Murphy had made the initial save on Oberbeck's shot. It was a nice turnaround shot from Oberbeck, high to high. Murphy made the save, popped up in the air, and Zadrill just able to clean up some of the garbage, and the Bulldogs are on the board, 2-1.
You take it. we'll take it. You always want to. I don't know why they call them garbage goals. They always count.
So 3:46 left in the first quarter. The Stags leading the Bulldogs 2-1, but Yale back on the board. And now Dylan Levings will once again set up for the face-off for the Bulldogs. On the ground. Pops up behind Levings, and it's controlled by Yale. So another face-off win for the Bulldogs. Works its way all the way back to Natali. And he'll slowly jog things up and set up the attack. Peter Johnson on the near side.
That was a really nice, clean win.
And an unforced error on the bad pass from Johnson, and Michael Lippin not able to control the pass, so the Stags are able to get the ball back, and a missed opportunity there for the Bulldogs as they potentially could have tied it up. Instead, Fairfield comes back the other way, and they'll have an opportunity to add on to their lead.
Yeah, those unforced turnovers, it'll kill you. You have to play smart. You're not going to beat a team like Fairfield making mistakes like that. You have to bring your A game.
Neubauer makes a run on the near side, back behind the net to Sperry. Pass deflected by the Bulldogs. A fight for the ball on the far sideline, picked up by Greenfield. That was Jimmy Kraft, the long stick midi, trying to create a turnover. Instead, Fairfield still controls as Colin McClendon almost loses control of the ball on the near side, but he's able to pick it up, spin around, make some space for himself. Still controls. A couple of passes back behind the net to Sperry. Sperry over to the far side, and once again the Stags will slow things up. Neubauer and up top to Warden. 2:32 left in the first quarter. Stags up 2-1. Marshall Johnson with the first goal for the Stags.
And we're seeing Fairfield now being called with a stall warning, so they have 30 seconds to get a shot on net.
Sperry once again has it behind the net, and an errant pass picked up by Sam Snow on the near side. Snow still controls. Up top to Warden, over to the far side to Sperry, spins around, trying to create some space, still haven't gotten a shot off. 2 minutes left in the first quarter. Warden near side to Snow.
And now 10 seconds left.
And the stall warning, the stall is called against the Stags, and the Bulldogs come back the other way. In transition, creating some space, McCormick. McCormick passes it off, a shot, and a point-blank save made by Murphy.
What an outstanding, that's a save that changes this game.
Zadrill had an opportunity to tie it up right in front of Murphy, and Murphy's able to stonewall him, and the Stags come back the other way.
Kirby Zadrill is saying, he was like, I got to get this past this guy quick, and Murphy was just outstanding there.
So instead of it being 2-2 with a minute and a half left in the first quarter, the Stags lead 2-1 and could potentially try to run out some of this clock to end the first quarter and try to tack on to their lead. Still controlling on the far side now, back behind the net. Quick pass, shot, score. Nice ball movement, and Tristan Sperry gets his 6th goal of the season. And just like that, the Stags add on to their lead. It's 3-1 Fairfield.
Very fundamental lacrosse there. Making that cut down towards the far pipe and finishing low. Just a great, great ball movement, and then great cut off ball.
And how big is that save from Jack Murphy now the other way?
Absolutely.
So Fairfield leading 3-1 over the Bulldogs, as Levings will once again look for the face-off, going up against Borgen-Yon for Fairfield. Sorry, that was Louis DiGiacomo instead of Levings. Levings wins the face-off for the Bulldogs, clears it over the midfield line, and will set up the offense once again for the Bulldogs. So slows things up, gets it over to Otero, and Otero over to the far side, controlled by Oberbeck. Oberbeck creating some space, 44 seconds left in the first quarter.
And now what you're seeing is some of the Yale guys, they're trying to keep players, they're trying to keep the defensive midfielders off of the field. So that's why you see Dylan Leving still in there on offense. Normally he'd be right off of that field.
Mangan trying to create some space behind the cage, now works his way to the right of Murphy, still controlling, 23 seconds left in the first quarter. Mangan still has it, falls down, still controlling the ball. Fairfield defense trying to get it out. Ground ball picked up by Zadrill. He controls. 13 seconds left in the first quarter. Bulldogs still have it. McCarthy checks the clock behind him, spins around, still has some time. 6 seconds, creating some space, takes the shot, and Murphy makes the save. He'll retreat behind the cage and watch the clock run down. And after 1 quarter of play, the Stags lead the Bulldogs 3-1. And one of the stars of that first quarter, undoubtedly Jack Murphy.
Absolutely. He's the difference in this game right now. This game, 2-3 great saves, stopping Kirby Zadrill, point blank. Just outstanding play from the Fairfield goalie today.
So offensively for the Bulldogs, Patrick, I mean, they've had some possessions, haven't had a lot of success. The only goal that they had, Kirby Zadrill, was able to pick it up off a rebound from Jack Murphy. What do the Bulldogs need to do a little bit differently to try to penetrate this defense and try to work their way back into the game?
The thing they need to do to score on Murphy is they need to get him moving. If he's standing still and he gets it and he's looking at you, he's going to stop it 90% of the time. You need to get him moving in the goal so you can create that movement and get an open corner to shoot on. If they don't get that movement going, it's going to be a long day for the Bulldogs.
And conversely for Fairfield, not a lot of possessions, but they've been pretty successful. They've been challenging Natali, and they've gotten 3 different goals from 3 different goal scorers, and they've been working the ball movement, and notably 2 goal scorers that did not put up a tally in that first quarter, Sam Snow and Jordan Greenfield.
Well, winning the battle, losing the war, the issue, you shut down their 2 biggest players, but you have to still watch those other guys, and Yale's defense is going to they'll make the adjustments, they'll find those other guys, and I expect to see them clamp down and really tighten up in this second quarter.
So the teams will switch sides. The Bulldogs now traveling from our broadcast left to right, and Fairfield from our broadcast right to left. Levings will once again go against DiGiacomo, as both of them have throughout the entire first quarter. Fairfield leading 3-1. Goals for the Stags from Tristan Sperry, from Marshall Johnson, and from TJ Neubauer. And the only goal in the first quarter for the Bulldogs coming from Kirby Zadrill. As both teams fight for the ground ball in the middle of the field. A couple of players falling to the ground, still loose in the Bulldogs' defensive end. And it's picked up by Fairfield, quickly lost, still on the ground. DiGiacomo fighting for it for the Stags. And a timeout, I believe, was called by Fairfield. So they'll look to control the ball for the first offensive possession of the second quarter.
Yeah, that's smart play by the coach. There's a loose ball in your offensive end. You want to put a goal in, so they're going to call that timeout. That's the second one they've used this half. Hopefully they don't need it later. But again, a smart play. The coach standing right there, he can make that call.
Andy Copeland in his 5th season at the helm for the Stags. Of course, a historic season for Fairfield last year. They got off to a 7-0 start in the ECAC, wound up finishing with a 12-4 overall record, and they lost to the number 1 team in the nation and wound up the eventual national champions in Loyola, Maryland in the ECAC final out in Denver. But still a great season for Fairfield, and they're trying to parlay some of that success last year into another successful season this year, and they've gotten off to a pretty good start.
Absolutely, and like we said before, Coach Copeland is building an outstanding program there. He's a Maryland guy, came in and really has changed the culture of that program and really developing some really great talent.
So both teams come out of the timeout, with the Stags leading 3-1. Just about 17 seconds in here in the second quarter. A quick timeout was taken by Copeland to maintain possession for the Stags, so they'll be on our broadcast left, and the Bulldogs attack defensive zone as they get set to resume play. Controlling it for the Bulldogs, Warden. Warden to McClendon, and over to the far side, where it's taken by Neubauer. Neubauer hands it off, and it works its way back to McClendon at the top of the slot. Spins around, creates some space, takes the shot, and scores. No, the rebound actually goes in. I thought the initial one had gone in.
It did. The initial one went in, and the ref was trying to get in on that.
So McClendon is able to get the goal for the Stags on the initial shot, and now they lead the Bulldogs 4-1.
The defenseman for Yale was, lost his step. Michael Quinn lost his step, and there was no slide there, no help coming to pick up that slide. When you're taking a shot at 10 yards, not much that the goalie can do there. He's not anything that Natali could do on that.
Now McClendon, normally a facilitator for the Stags, 7 assists on the season, but that was just his 4th goal. So 4 goals for the Stags from 4 different players. They lead the Bulldogs by 3. Still early on here in the game, though. 14-14 left in the second quarter, and the Bulldogs back on the offensive. Oberbeck behind the net to Zadrill, and over to the far side, Mangan. But the Stags have certainly been efficient offensively here today. They've capitalized on most of their opportunities and thusly lead the Bulldogs by 3 goals.
They're getting those possessions. They're getting the goals. They did have a stall warning, but they're really going quickly into the possessions and getting the shots off.
Bulldogs controlling. Thornton slowly jogging it around the perimeter to the near side. A screen set. Tries to work his way towards the cage, and solid defense from the Stags forces Thornton to back off. Back Mangan behind the net. Mangan looking for a place to dish it off. Shakespeare on the far side. Shakespeare back over to Bonacci. Bonacci, near side. controlled by the Bulldogs once again. Oberbeck. Oberbeck's been a little quiet so far here today. Has one shot, which Jack Murphy made a fine save on. The rebound was put home by Zadrill. And that led to the only Bulldogs goal here so far today. As Thornton not able to control the pass, and it rolls all the way to the sideline, and unforced turnover, and the Stags will get the ball right back. Not what you want to do when you're trailing by 3 goals to the number 17 team in the nation.
No, and that's the second unforced turnover for Yale today.
I'll give the Stags credit. Number 17 team, they've lost a couple of close games to a couple of very good opponents, but they've come out firing here today. And the call is called against Fairfield. Might have been an offsides.
Yeah, an offside behind the play.
So the Bulldogs will get the ball back as they look to control and try to get back on the scoreboard. On the near side, Kaczerzik. Kaczerzik over to Oberbeck, and Oberbeck will jog it behind the net. 12:30 left in the second quarter. The Stags leading 4-1. Marc Schwartz alongside Patrick Reed on the call for Yale All-Access. Up top, the ball is controlled by Colin Flaherty. Over to McCarthy, and back to the near side to Lippin. McCarthy at the top will set things up for the Bulldogs, working to his left. And back behind the net to Mangan. Mangan has been held in check so far here today, as has Oberbeck. Trying to create some space, passes it off to Zadrill, and he's able to find the back of the net. Zadrill's second of the game, and the Bulldogs back within 2.
And that's what we talked about before with Yale wanting to get Murphy moving in the net. They created Brandon Mangan dodging from behind, so the goalie's watching them behind, and then a backdoor cut from Kirby Zadrill right in front of the net. Beautiful finish.
So Zadrill able to will the Bulldogs within 2. He has both goals on the afternoon for Yale. The score 4-2, 11:56 left in the second quarter.
You start to see why Fairfield on the man-up play was shutting off Kirby Zadrill behind the net, not even letting him get a ball.
The face-off won by Levings once again. So the Bulldogs, after the goal from Kirby Zadrill, will look to try to add on to that. On the far side, Mangan. Mangan slows things up and jogs behind the cage.
And an interesting idea of what Fairfield looks like they're doing on the offense on the face-off is they're going right after Dylan Levings. He's winning the face-off, and what they're doing is just converging all 3 players to try to take the ball from him.
Passes around the perimeter, and Mangan not able to control that pass. Well, quickly picks up his own ground ball, maintains possession for the Bulldogs. McCarthy jogging at the top. Over the near side where it's controlled by Lippin. Lippin works his way back towards the midfield line. Over to McCarthy. McCarthy gets a little bit of a head of steam, works to his right, slows things up. Trying to find a place to pass it. Back over to Oberbeck. Oberbeck to Mangan. Mangan on the far side, working his way in front of the net. Solid defense, however, by the Stags, and the flag flies. A lot of contact. Mangan still controlling. And finally dishes it back off top, where it's taken by Flaherty. Flaherty back to Mangan. And now Zadrill will control behind the net. Zadrill working to his left, trying to create some space. Works back in front of the net, takes the shot and scores! Kirby Zadrill taking over this game for the Bulldogs, and the score is 4-3.
And we talk about momentum and Yale being a team that thrives on intensity, and Kirby Zadrill took care of that all himself.
Zadrill now 9 goals on the season, 3 goals here today. And what was once a 3-goal lead for the Stags has now been trimmed down to 1 off the stick of Kirby Zadrill.
And the refs were calling a hold there on the Fairfield defense because of the goal wiped out, so it will be an even man face-off.
So Levings once again will have the opportunity to win the face-off for the Bulldogs. Ball loose on the ground, fighting alongside the Stags. A lot of contact, a hard check from the Bulldogs, and a delayed flag comes out, and some of the Yale faithful and the Yale sideline not happy with the cross-check call.
I don't know that we're supposed to really criticize. That was a terrible call, because Dylan Levings gets cross-checked from behind, is down on his face, gets up, and then does the same thing to the front of a player, and they call a cross-check on it. I don't know what they're seeing there.
But with the little bit of momentum that the Bulldogs had, 2 consecutive goals to bring them within 1, they'll now have to try to slow down the man-up advantage for the Stags. 10:23 left in the second quarter, and the Stags go back on the attack. They'll pass the ball around the perimeter. Warden back over to Sperry behind the net. Over to Warden. Up front to Newbarrow. Snow and Greenfield. Greenfield thinks about the shot. Back to Snow. Takes the shot and scores. Only 11 seconds into the man-up advantage, and after Kirby's a drill had scored 2 unanswered goals, the Stags extend their lead back out to 2.
The man-up play, Yale's defense was in a 5-man rotation, forcing the shot to come from the outside. A great bounce shot. Bounce shot right in front of the crease that picked the top corner. Sam Snow is not leading the team in scoring for nothing.
Well, Snow's certainly been a prolific scorer for the Stags this year. Coming into the game, Fairfield was only 4 of 19 on the man-up advantage, converting-wise this season, but able to convert right there and try to take some of the momentum away from the Bulldogs. But Levings once again wins the faceoff for Yale, comes back down into the offensive zone, and he'll spin around, slow things up, and retreat to the sideline as the Bulldogs control on the attack. Mangan behind the net is a drill, over to Oberbeck. Fairfield leading 5-3, 9:44 left in the second quarter. Near side taken by Shane Thornton, over to Shakespeare, and back to Thornton. Thornton behind the net, Oberbeck, and Mangan. Mangan on the far side, sizing up his defender. Back up top to Thornton, and once again controlled by Bonacci. Bonacci working his way to his right. Solid defense there from the Stags. Back to Mangan behind the net. It's a drill far side. Over to Shakespeare, back up top to Thornton. Thornton working his way to his right. No shooting lane, over to Mangan. Mangan behind the net. Quick pass, shot, score! Mangan finds Oberbeck in the slot, and the Bulldogs once again trail just by 1. The score is 5-4.
And this is what we were expecting to see out of this Yale offense. Moving the ball from behind to the front, finding those cross-crease cutters. A great ball movement by Yale.
Oberbeck's 11th goal of the season, now leading the Bulldogs in that category. And Mangan working as a facilitator. Coming into the game with 6 assists, 16 overall points on the year, and working his magic there. So the Bulldogs once again trailing just by 1. It's 5-4. And it's certainly been an exciting second quarter here, Patrick. A lot of scoring, a lot of back and forth play as Yale continues to control off the faceoffs. Levings has done a very nice job for the Bulldogs here today, giving them a lot of possessions.
Absolutely. He's getting that ball into his stick and then out to somebody else really quick as everybody's converging on him right after the faceoff.
Oberbeck behind the net slows things up. Near side Flaherty. Colin Flaherty sizing up his defender. Flaherty versus Newbarrow. Flaherty falls down, ball loose on the ground. Both players continue to fight for it. Ground ball still loose, back behind the cage. 3 players on each team converge, still loose. And eventually, it was picked up by Fairfield. But a timeout, I believe, was called by Yale.
A similar play to what Copeland did at the other end, where once it got into the Yale stick, Coach Shea called that quick timeout so they could get the possession.
So the Bulldogs will control it coming out of the timeout. 8:22 left here in the second quarter. Fairfield leading 5-4. It's been an exciting second period, Patrick, and the offenses have kind of opened up a little bit, and Yale has sort of found their rhythm. They've opened up their offense, and they've gotten a couple of goals in.
Yeah, the unforced errors are ending. They're moving the ball very well. You watch on that last goal, it started with a dodge. The slide came. Once the slide came, he fed the ball behind. He passed it behind. And then there were 2 Yale players with 1 defenseman. So you just wait, see which one is open, and make that quick pass and finish. And that's, typical Yale offense, what they've done.
And Murphy being challenged a little bit more here in the second quarter. Hasn't been able to make as many saves as he had in the first quarter. He was very solid in the first quarter. Not so much here in the second. But the Fairfield Stags still leading by 1, and they remain efficient offensively. Granted, Levings has been very consistent for the Bulldogs in the face-off department, giving the Bulldogs a lot of possessions. But when Fairfield has had it, they've been efficient, and they've been able to find the back of the net.
Yeah, and Dylan Levings, we talked about him needing to have a huge game, and he's doing that. He's winning the face-offs, getting the ball to his team, and really just letting the offensive players, Oberbeck and Mangan and Kirby Zadrill, really put the ball in the net.
So resume play here with 8:22 left in the second quarter. The drill will start things up, give it over to McCarthy. And McCarthy works the ball back up top to Flaherty and over to the far side to Lippin. Lippin way along the far side over to Mangan as the Bulldogs stretching out the Fairfield defensive a little bit here. McCarthy on the near side, sizes up the defender, works to his right. Slide help comes and McCarthy passes it behind the net to Mangan. Back to McCarthy, tries to work his way in front of the net. Still controls, solid defense, kicks it back out to Lippin. Lippin to Flaherty, a little deep move, takes the shot and scores! A solid play there from Colin Flaherty, and the Bulldogs have worked their way back into the game. They've tied it up at 5.
Absolutely great individual effort by Colin Flaherty. He got his player hard dodge in, took a step out, and just time and room shot, put the nice bounce shot low and away.
So Flaherty able to create some space for himself, and the Bulldogs have worked themselves back from a 4-1 deficit to tie it up at 5, 7:47 left in the second quarter. They've trailed by as many as 3 goals as a violation on the faceoff called against Leving, so now the Stags will have an opportunity to try to regain the lead, but it's been almost all Bulldogs here in the second quarter, Patrick, besides, of course, the man-up advantage that Fairfield had that they were able to convert on.
And Yale's got the momentum. They're playing hard. They're playing strong. This is their house. They're not going to let somebody come in and push them around in their house.